This is our video about our 1-year experience owning the Airstream Interstate 24-foot GT.
Now, a lot of you have asked for us to make this video, and this video has been a long time coming. But what better time to kind of wrap up the whole year's experience than at the 1-year anniversary point?
We really were waiting to shoot this video until we could shoot it not in our home, but in the van. But that's getting ahead of ourselves. Let's start with, why did we buy the van?
That's a good point. I think initially, because I'm looking back to when we started shopping for a van, or a Class B van specifically, is because at the time we were starting to see a rise in campground costs. So that was one of the defining factors.
And they were really, really busy.
Yeah, they were.
When we first started camping, campgrounds were relaxing and your RVs weren't basically touching each other, and we had just experienced a lot of just campground burnout, to be honest.
It's true. Now, we're coming from a perspective of, the East Coast. Now, when you go back out to the West Coast, which we spend a large majority of our time at, there is clearly more space, more boondocking opportunities, BLM land and such. So,
well, and that's exactly what our plans were for this year, to spend most of our time out west. We were really excited about staying in our first national park campground, boondocking more, and so that's why we got really excited about the van. So we purchased the Airstream van specifically because if you've been following along with our channel, you know we have been huge Airstream
okay.
We love Airstream.
We do. So here's what Lauren's trying to say. We also own a 30-foot Airstream Classic. It's the queen bed, rear bed. It has been amazing, honestly, and we've loved it. There's lots of windows which bring in natural light, and we can't say enough positive things about the Airstream Classic because we've had an absolutely amazing experience with it. So overall, if we had to recommend an Airstream today, the Airstream Classic would be near the top of our list.
But that's not what this video is about. This video is specifically about our experience with the Airstream Interstate van. And before we dive into the full 12-month breakdown of this thing, I think it's only fair to caveat that this is our experience. One of the best things that's happened about buying this van is we have had the pleasure to meet so many amazing people, potentially including you, who own an Airstream Interstate. And we've had tons of people who have had great experiences, all of which who have bought one before the year of 2021. They love their Airstream Interstate. So I just wanted to make sure we put that out there before we talk about the clustercussery of our 12-month experience.
Yeah. And even in the world of Airstream Interstates, there's different models. So as Lauren mentioned, we have a 2023 Airstream Interstate 24 GT. Now, there are a few additional add-ons that we did add on to the base package.
That might have been stupid.
Yes.
It is what it is.
They will. One of which is the brand new E1 lithium package. That is one of the newer options from Airstream for the Interstate coaches in general.
Which is a major reason that we purchased it, because it was going to give us the ability to basically boondock indefinitely.
That's true. Just a massive, massive battery bank. With that particular system comes the Timberline heating system, which is unique to the E1 packaged model Interstates.
And wasn't the leveling system a brand new add-on?
It's not. It's relatively new. They've been making it for a handful of years prior to 2023, but the auto leveling system is also something that we opted for. The general idea behind it is you get to your campground, you push a button, sort of that one-touch thing, and then it just auto levels at all 4 points.
Which sounds great.
Yeah, and when it works, it is.
Yeah.
And when it works, it is. That's true.
But that's the caveat. But I think that's a perfect place to start, because when the van works, it is great. we love the van when it works.
So-
Okay, enough of us rambling. This is what you really want to hear, the 12-month breakdown of our Airstream Interstate experience. Month number 1. We were so excited.
We were. We got the Tommy Bahama package, which if you're not familiar with that package, it's like a limited edition model, and it has a lot of some cool interior upgrades that looks super stylish, including a really epic floor. That's also a serve point, but literally some really cool features in the interior of that.
So Daniel, me, and Dash, who was just over 1 year old at this point,
That's
because this
true.
was May,
Yeah.
and his birthday is May 14th. So he was just about to turn 1. We went and picked up the van from Airstream of Tampa. We were so pumped. We were basically picking her up and immediately came back, packed it, and drove to Wyoming.
That's true. And the reason we're going to Wyoming was for...
The Airstream International Rally.
Exactly.
But that trip was pretty eventful. The first 30 days was wild.
It was. So we decided to stop in Nashville to see Lauren's family on the way to Wyoming. So it was
And
kind of a
show
good
off
in-between
our
spot.
cool new van.
Right. Yeah, no doubt. No,
It's
definitely.
really
Check out the cool van. Yeah. Yeah, and that is probably when we started to notice some initial issues with the power system.
Yeah, and I think because we were so fresh with it,
True.
we really thought we just didn't know what we were doing.
Which is common. You get something new, and you go through the factory tour. This doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter which RV you have. You're gonna have a tour when you pick it up. They're gonna run through 50 million things, and they're like, "You got it?" And you're like, "Yeah,
of course.
I've got it all." Yeah, the 400-point checklist. And in all honesty, they did a really good job when we picked it up here in Tampa. An excellent job of going over all the systems. So, but even that being said, you still kind of doubt yourself when you're first starting out with these new systems, all new
But there
systems.
were some things that probably we shouldn't have doubted ourselves on.
Sure.
Because one of the things that I remember most distinctly, and we didn't talk about this in any of our videos because, again, we were like, we don't know what we're doing. I remember going out to the van when it was parked in front of my parents' house, and I pressed the button to open the side door, and nothing happened. And I was like, that doesn't make any sense. So like I went over to the door, I wiggled the thing, I figured it out, whatever, it opened manually. And then when I was going back into the house, I used the fob to try to shut it again, and still nothing happened. And I thought, this is the weirdest thing. Like, it's a regular car fob. Like, this shouldn't be an issue.
Yeah.
Why is the door not working?
I know. One of the things I noticed probably the first few days is trying to unlock the van from the inside. It seems like a simple task, but we could only get it to unlock with the remote. Like, even like hitting the buttons, they were kind of dead, so you had to pull the handle to open the door. We thought there was something really odd about that. Not only that, we had it parked at Lauren's parents' house, and I mean literally parked every system completely
It was only
off.
a few days.
Yeah, and it was cool weather, so it was really nothing that would be a huge drain on the battery. But as it sat there, it was losing 20 to 30% of the entire this like massive battery bank every day it sat in the driveway.
I mean, I'm like, we don't really think that's supposed to be like that. And so
Yeah.
you plugged it in.
I did. I plugged it in. I have a dog bone adapter. So the vans come with a 30 amp plug, and then you have something called a dog bone adapter that allows you to plug it into like your typical outlet you find at home, which gives you roughly 15 amps. So I did that.
But at that point, it still didn't really charge.
It didn't. Yeah.
And again, we thought, this has to be on us. We'll figure it out. It's no big deal. So
Right.
basically we hit the road, and the great thing about the van is that the system does charge itself while you drive.
That's true.
So for the next 7 to 10 days while we were driving out to Wyoming, it was charging and it seemed totally fine.
True. Yeah, there's 2 alternators on the van. So that is a beautiful thing about, driving, and the drivetrain kind of powers the battery pack while you're driving, like she said.
Right. So while we were on the way out there, 2 weird things happened. One is that we stopped at a Harvest Host, and it was warmer at that point wherever we were. And when we stopped at that Harvest Host, after we went and wandered local there and experienced the little business that we were at. We came back out to the van and the air conditioners wouldn't turn on. And the E1 system is supposed to be set up so that you can run your air conditioners. And because we have a 1-year-old now, now 2, but at that point 1, we weren't willing to go without air conditioning for the evening. So we took it to a campground, plugged it in.
Yeah, and I did the things that you would typically do when something doesn't work. I go straight to YouTube and I search for it. So I made sure the inverter was on and all those things. But even then, we were having some intermittent issues with AC at that point already.
But we got it working when it was completely plugged in.
True, that's exactly right. So when it was plugged into a 30 amp campground, it would work. That's the beautiful thing about it, right?
It works when it's in a campground.
That's exactly it. So like when. Which is kind of the irony in all of it. When it was at a campground, it did well for the most part. We'll talk about that later, but yeah.
So we keep on going, restful night's sleep, whatever. And then tragedy number 1 struck with the van.
Yeah. At this point is when we began to realize that maybe the van is cursed. And maybe we should have Amazoned some sage and just like saged the whole thing and walked through it a few times, because this one was pretty tragic and it was hard for us to watch. What happened, Lauren?
So we were in Nebraska, and I don't even think we were planning on staying the night in Nebraska.
No, we were just driving through.
Straight
we were
through.
hungry.
Yeah.
Right.
And we stopped at a little Mexican restaurant. And I remember when we went in, we do have this on video. We were like, this guy looks really funky.
This is a video you'd want to watch, just kind of flip through some of our older videos. It's pretty crazy.
Oh, it's so depressing is what it is. We hit the hailstorm from hell.
Yeah, from if hell was an icy place. Maybe, but yeah,
That's fair.
It was a rogue storm.
There were golf ball size hail. And thankfully it was only cosmetic damage. We didn't have any kind of issues with like windows being blown out or light issues, but there were over 1,700 dents.
Little dings, yeah. This is really when you guys gave it its name. Dimples. Yeah, so from that point forward, everybody started calling the van Dimples. So we didn't have to worry about naming the van. You guys named the van at that point, and we just started calling it Dimples.
It was pretty rough. It was so hard to watch. But thankfully we weren't driving in it when it happened. Yeah. It was totally cosmetic. Like, it was totally drivable. So afterwards, we ended up continuing on our way to the Airstream rally.
That's true. Yeah.
Which was amazing. We stayed in Rock Springs, Wyoming. We had so much fun. If you do have an Airstream and you've never been to the Airstream rally, we highly, highly suggest it. Unfortunately, this year we're not going to be able to go because I am very pregnant and due in September, and so the timing doesn't work out for us for this year. But it was so much fun. An amazing group of people, which is actually where we learned about Vinny's. Him and Ivan out in California.
Ivan the Great.
Yes.
Yes, we had heard about Ivan for a long time.
They're known as the team to fix an issue like what we had experienced in Nebraska with the hailstorm. So that's when we started thinking about that, but we wanted to wait. Like, there wasn't any immediate issue or need for us to fix it. Yeah. And so we were like, okay, well, we're planning on headed out generally that way soon. So
yeah, so
let's
we'll
keep with our plan.
Because we still had some amazing plans lined up at the Grand Tetons and Yellowstone reservations,
and Glacier.
We had some amazing parks mapped out. So we were pretty pumped about that. We're like, the Dimples, whatever, we'll deal with it later when we get to California. And we called Vinny in advance, and he's like, come on in and we'll figure it out.
When you get there. I'm like, okay, great. So month 1 completed. Holy moly, it has to get easier from here. I remember us talking about that. And we even talked about how, when we first had the Airstream, the first 30 days, it was a lot of learning. It's not that easy or relaxing learning a new RV. So we were like, next 30 days, these are gonna be great. We're staying in the Grand Tetons for a majority of this month.
Amazing place. Highly recommend.
Oh my gosh, so beautiful.
Yeah.
And it was our very first experience staying in a national park, which was amazing.
And it was amazing to prop the door open, and we just had our own little, oasis there.
It was heaven.
Yeah.
Until we woke up one morning and the van's garage had flooded.
Yeah, the garage being the back part of basically the bed is in the rear of the van. Underneath the bed, completely flooded. We could hear the rushing water, so we went out. I immediately went out, jumped out of the van and went to the back, and it was just a waterfall that was cascading down the rear bumper. A lot of not so nice words, popped into my head.
I think we did a video of this too.
Yeah, we did do a video of this. Yeah, I don't think we caught the initial gush, the waterfall, of like just gallons and gallons. I didn't get there that fast, but it was a lot. Everything was soaked.
We'll throw a link here to that video so you can see it if you want to see the details. But the good news, I guess, was that we were about an hour away from an Airstream dealership.
That's true.
The Airstream team in Tampa, we talked to them first. They helped us kind of like do some quick analysis.
Yeah.
We took it down to the Airstream in Wyoming, and they were like, yes, we can help you fix it, but it's going to take some time.
Of course, yeah.
So
I think that had to do with how to access at that point, we determined that it was the timberline system. That's at least where we were able to isolate that initial problem.
We just drove back, stayed a few days, and because we already had July, this was July is my birthday. We already had a Texas trip planned where we were going to be flying out and visiting family. So the timing was great. We just dropped it off at the dealership. We flew out, had a lovely time for my birthday with family, and then came back to get it. The levelers were already a problem though at this point too.
The leveler one of the levelers on the auto leveling system was already starting to drop, one of the plungers, and every day it would drop just a little bit if you didn't use the system. So you would have to hit the manual button to raise all of the levelers up again, and then, it would just drop every day. So we knew that was an issue. One of the auto blinds are they go up and down. Really cool feature. Manual blinds probably better because you don't have all the automated stuff. Pros and cons. It was tilted like that, so we knew there was an issue there. So we left it with Airstream of Wyoming to fix.
Yep. So when we got back, we went to go pick it up. Overall, everything seemed like it was fine. The only issue we ran into when we picked it up, which we didn't realize at the time, but now know that it was another sign about our electrical system issues to come, was that the weather was lovely, but they had put it out in the front lot for us to come pick it up, and our entire refrigerator had de-thawed. And the electrical system didn't keep it cold, and so we had issues with the floor was stained.
Basically, there was some stuff in the fridge, and we were full timing in this, so that's probably something else that we hadn't talked about up until this point. We were full timing in this fan, and things had melted in, I think it was a freezer. Yeah, and legitimately, the only thing that this massive battery bank had to power was just the fridge, and we felt confident at the time that at least that would be a doable task, but unfortunately it was not. So that all that stuff dripped down the woodwork and stained the flooring, and that was already an issue. The blinds weren't able to be fixed because the entire panel had to be removed, and they weren't able to do that. They fixed the auto levelers, and then
they thought they fixed the auto levelers.
That's true. Well,
that's a reoccurring theme. Everybody always thinks they fixed the auto levelers.
And then it fails again. That's true. But then the Timberline system, for whatever reason, a very specific reason. See, rather than hear our opinions, we have all of the work orders here. So you're not just listening to our opinions. This is a collection of work orders from all of the places that we have visited in our 1 year with this van. The wrong clamp was used on one of the hoses for the Timberline system. I can say that confidently because that's what's in the report. When pressure was applied, the clamp wasn't tight enough to hold it. It blew off, the entire system drained, flooded everything. So that's the Timberline issue at that point.
Which leads us to
month three.
Okay, so at this point, we feel like the van has had enough issues that we just want to let Vinny take a look at it, get the hail damage fixed. We'd gotten it approved by our insurance company at this point.
Yeah.
So between the time that it took for Airstream of Wyoming to fix it, for us to get back, the whole nine, it had already kind of derailed our trip to Yellowstone.
And a big thing is at this point, we're starting to incur a lot of additional costs. We had to rent a car because when you're in a van like that, when you drop it off, you have nothing. So we had to rent a car, we had to rent hotels at that point.
Which thankfully we are big believers in travel points. So for the most of our hotels, we were using travel points when we could, if it was convenient and that kind of thing.
Yeah,
but I mean, don't get me wrong.
There are better places to use points.
Yeah, 100%.
Right.
100%.
Right.
Not how we wanted
Not because you have
use
to
them.
at some random hotel.
Yeah,
you know.
agreed with that. Okay. So on our way to California, we found this cute little campground in Quincy. Or actually, when we first got to California, basically, we found this cute campground in Quincy. We really liked it, so we figured, hey, we've got a little bit of time to burn before we get to Vinny's. Let's sit here for a week and just do nothing. We just want to relax. This has been ridiculous. Like, we don't want to worry about the systems. We're just going to plug it in. This place is beautiful. Like, let's chill and then take a down week.
Which is great. It was a great place to run. We got to visit some local places while we were there.
It was super fun.
It was a really nice campground in Quincy.
And then we tried to leave.
And then the day of, literally checkout time, packing up the van.
We're ready to go.
Go to start the van. Dead. I'm talking like none of the Mercedes systems, nothing. It was dead. That was tough to swallow. That was a tough pill to swallow because at the time I was already kind of frustrated with the van and what was going on.
Kind of.
I was very frustrated. We tried to,
This was the point where you were more frustrated than I was.
I was so mad. I was so mad because literally the stress of like having to leave a campground and they're like, hey, there's somebody coming right behind you. And I'm like, well, it's dead. And at that point, the auto levelers were down on the ground. So like, you just can't even put it in neutral. You can't put it in neutral when the van dies because you can't, it's all electronic. So you can't shift it into neutral and then just like push it out of the way.
So there's a video for that too.
There is. We tried jumping it with 3/4 ton pickup trucks and everybody
in
packs,
the campground tried to help us, which was wonderful. Another reason why we love the RV community. Long story short, we had to get it towed 2.5 hours down to Rockland, California. We got insanely lucky. We posted on Instagram about being stranded, and two amazing Airstreamers who we had only met once at a Airstream rally, Julie and Tim, actually came and got me and Daniel and Dash and drove us all the way down because we didn't have, like, there was that little town we were in, there was
tiny.
No way to rent a car quickly
No
and
car
easily.
rentals.
We couldn't ride with the tow truck because we had Dash and the car seat.
Yeah, we're stuck.
Oh my gosh. So Julie, you're an angel. Tim, thank you for letting her come get us. They were literally
will
our
forever be
lifesavers.
dear friends of ours from that point forward. They became some of our dearest friends.
So they dropped us off at the Marriott we stayed at that night. Went to the no, it wasn't the Airstream. It was the Mercedes dealership. Was the first place we took it to.
Right.
And we walked in. They let us know that they had updated the software, and it was fixed.
Yeah, they didn't really go very much into details, but they did charge us $280 to put the drivetrain back together because the tow guy had to disconnect the drivetrain because it was fully to tow it, and then
This is where
costs incurred, $280 invoice to pick up the van after the tow truck dropped it off, and
this is where I lost.
That's true. I had already written off the van at that point. I'm like, I don't even know what to say anymore. So that was cool. And then Lauren.
So I'm already like a software update. Like, are you serious? That seems like baloney. And maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I'm not a car expert, but
they also did say that there was something that was potentially draining the batteries. Like it was some vampire drain of the batteries. There's two main ways, but whatever the case.
What they told us too was that they had driven it around, they had tested it.
You have to.
Everything was fine. So we go to get the van after they gave us our keys.
Yeah.
And the drawers are in the floor.
Busted up.
There's a hole in the floor.
There ended up being 2 holes in the floor. Yeah.
And I think my head almost exploded. It's so bad.
This is the beautiful flooring we talked about that is unique to Tommy Bahama.
Well, but then the thing about it is if someone drove it around.
Yeah, there's crap everywhere.
No one noticed that this happened. Like I couldn't handle. So I went back in there. Southern lady lost my you-know-what on them. And they offered to detail it for us.
They offered to wash it. Yeah, after the drawers and floor were destroyed. Free car wash. So,
So there's that. So that day was like, for me, a tipping point that I was like, I don't even know. But we ended up taking it straight from there to Vinny's, which was a whole different service experience, and they were amazing.
Yeah, Vinny is a straight shooter. He just gives you the news whether you like it or not, and I can appreciate that.
Yeah.
Sometimes people, make mistakes. Sometimes they deliver a flawless, product or solution. But I think it's just always good to be upfront and honest, and he is just. He exemplifies that.
We walked down the list of the things. At this point, we knew there were issues with the electrical system. We had issues with the leveling system. We knew that there could potentially still be issues with the timberline system. We did not know.
And the screen door broke too. Yeah, I forgot about it. There's little things.
There were a ton of silly little things, to be honest. So Vinny wasn't planning on handling all of those because our van was under warranty and Vinny's shop isn't a dealership. Those things needed to be going to an Airstream dealership to be fixed, so we didn't have to pay for them.
Specifically, it was an insurance claim because we were getting the dings.
Yeah, for the hail fix.
Right.
So Vinny let us know, because he's an angel, that after they were done with the hail damage, which he was straight with us and told us it was going to take some time. There were 1,700 dings in our van. That after that, he would have his team take the van to the Airstream dealership that was closest to him, and we could do whatever we wanted at that point.
Which is
because it was going to take time.
Airstream Adventures.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So that was the end of month 3.
Wow. Yeah, this video's been a long time coming.
Well, good news. This part gets really quick.
That's true.
Month 4. In the shop.
At Bay Area.
No, at Vinny's.
No. Oh, that's right. Okay. Right. Yeah, good.
Hail
that was a lot of work.
Getting fixed.
Yeah.
Month number 5. In the shop. This is when it actually was transferred to
like mid-month.
Yeah, right? Airstream.
Bay Area Airstream?
Yep.
Yeah.
And so it took about 45 days for them to fix the hail before it moved over.
Which is incredible, because there were some parts that needed to be ordered too, like one of the outside doors got dinged and they had to, just minor
little things like
stuff.
that. Yeah. So they did a beautiful job. They literally sent us videos, showed us all of it. Like, you literally could not tell that this thing got
mind-blowing.
It really
is mind-blowing. If you have any dings or dents on any Airstream, or apparently a vehicle, because we have a Mercedes chassis, I mean,
go to Vinny's and see Ivan the Great.
No doubt.
Okay, so month number 5, it's moved to the Airstream
Bay Area Airstream. That's exactly right. And they reach out immediately and start communicating, which I thought was, over the course of this journey, we visited a lot of dealerships. They were on the ball with communications and they would even at some point start sending us videos of the progress and things like it was really, really a wonderful experience. So I do want to say a lot of positive things about that.
Month number 6.
Yeah.
It was in the shop.
Yeah. Yeah.
And month number 7, it was in the shop too. So thankfully we had already had some other plans. We went and ran the Berlin Marathon. And so like it didn't completely ruin our year that our home was in the shop like this, but it definitely was very, very inconvenient. And like Daniel has said a couple of times, it incurred a whole lot of cost. We took a bunch of flights that we weren't expecting to take, had a lot of hotel stays that we weren't expecting. So that was really unfortunate because that was not part of our expectation with the van.
Flights, hotels, and rental cars that we never anticipated that we would need.
So month number 7, at the very end of the month, the van is now ready.
Yeah.
So we spend Christmas with my family and then fly up to California, or fly out to California.
Right.
And pick up the van on the 28th of December.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. And they had a laundry list of stuff to fix. And the expectation was set in advance that it was going to take some time because they just had a lot of crap to fix. I mean, honestly. Like,
well, and they had to try to figure out the electrical system, which is hands down probably the most complicated problem with the van.
Yeah.
They even sent one of their techs out to the Airstream, and
which is the headquarters.
Did a full training for a week before he came back and worked on it. He was a super straight shooter. We really enjoyed working with him.
I adore him. Yeah, I mean their team was. He went over things that I will not say on camera, but the biggest takeaway here is that I feel like for the most part, practically rebuilt the power system the correct way. To get it to where it is, working, which I thought was amazing. I think that I can't even comprehend how many hours went into him working on that power system and everything else in between. It had to be extensive. We get these work orders that you guys will get when you go to dealerships, and it doesn't always say like 400 hours on it, but I got the feeling that he probably put 400 hours into rebuilding everything,
and
doing everything.
I think my
there's a lot of
favorite
stuff.
quote from him about the experience with working on our electrical system is he said he usually goes through about like one walkie-talkie a month working there in general, at like something that annoys him because he's like, just tosses them. And I think he said that working on our van,
it's like 2 or 3 walkie-talkies just on our van alone.
Our van alone cost him like multiple walkie-talkies, and he just cracked us up.
Yeah. And they found things. So they found.
Oh my God, that was the cracked black tank.
That was a crack. So the black tank was cracked. There was a wiring harness that was. I don't want to misquote these things because I think that's.
They replaced the black tank.
They replaced the black tank.
That was a warranty
They
thing.
replaced the flooring too, which is a really, really cool thing. They had to replace the freezer door, which was dinged up because of the shelving. The shelving hit the freezer door too. They had to replace the rear shade. The main harness was almost touching the drivetrain. Had to fix that. The stabilizer, one of the plungers had to be fixed as well. How many pages
is this thing?
There was a leak in the bathroom light that had to be fixed.
Okay, so as you can see, if we actually went through all
we're not gonna
the
go through all
details of this,
that's just
this video would be 3 hours
That's
long.
True. We don't bore you
So,
with that stuff.
needless to say, they did a good job. We really appreciated their communication. So that leads us to month number 8. This is January of 2024.
Starting to get cold.
And we are driving her from California to Nashville to Florida to get back for the Florida RV show.
Sure.
Now, we initially thought we had about 2 weeks to do this trip.
We did.
And so our plan was like, let's make really good progress at the beginning, and then like we can relax and enjoy kind of the back half of the trip.
Yeah.
So first night.
Yeah, we left California. We
didn't make it out of California.
We did make it. We did make it out. That's right. We did not. Now, again, I will add this caveat before we say anything. The Bay Area Airstream team did nothing to work on the Timberline system because they weren't there to fix the Timberline system. But at this point, we started to have trouble with the Timberline system.
So it was cold. It was really cold. And we were basically having to outrun a snowstorm. So it was in the 20s. We went to bed, we set up everything. Heating system should have been working great. But
you
granted,
used it before too.
But we hadn't used it in those kind of temperatures. And I don't know that we had used it before because it hadn't been cold.
We used it once or twice on the way to California.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we turned it on, went to bed.
Mm-hmm.
At about 2 a.m., I woke up and it smelled so strongly of fuel that it scared me. So I woke Daniel up, shut the system off immediately, and we were like, what are we gonna do? Because we are seasoned RVers, we had multiple blankets and that kind of thing. It felt warm in there at that point, and so we were like, we know when the sun starts coming up, it'll be fine. So we got out a couple extra blankets, made sure Dash was comfortable, and made it through the night. It didn't ever get real cold in there.
No.
And so...
Yeah, we turned off the
next morning, we were like, what the heck do? We can't sleep in here if it smells like fuel, and we can't freeze. So,
especially with a 1-year-old.
Right.
I mean, that's the biggest thing, right? I mean, there are things that Laura and I would try to tough out, but when you have a 1-year-old, you're not going to try to tough those things out, especially if there's even a slight chance of, putting that child at risk. You're not going to do
Yeah, the answer was no. And so it radically changed our trip back. We ended up just staying in hotels every night and beelining to Florida as quickly as we could get there. Basically, we ran into a couple additional issues. We had a new issue with the leveling system, one of the ones that hadn't had issues before, now was hitting the ground. Mm-hmm. We also had an issue with one of the sensors that was actually causing it not to throttle.
Right. It's a parking sensor or collision sensor. So essentially what happened is we pulled into a gas station, and then this red dash light went on, and I had no throttle response whatsoever. So I'm just tapping and pushing the gas pedal, nothing's happening. I'm just kind of rolling.
I just cried.
Yeah, because at that point, literally you're pressing the gas and nothing's happened. Eventually...
We were just outside of Memphis when that happened, and we
weren't sure if we're gonna make it because when you lose throttle response, well, then you're just rolling. So that's essentially what was happening.
And there was no way to know if that would happen
while we're driving on the road or
Thankfully, that didn't happen. We ended up making it back to Nashville. Turned out fine. We talked to the dealership in Nashville, the Mercedes dealership, and they let us know that because of the issue that we were experiencing, that we weren't going to have any kind of issue with it doing that on the interstate.
They showed us how to deactivate it too, which was cool. So we went into a manual setting and then deactivated it. Maybe not the best thing to deactivate a collision sensor, but
it worked.
We had to
for
get
now.
Back. Yeah.
So when we got back to Florida, we took it to the Tampa
Mercedes-Benz of Tampa. Yep.
This is still month 8.
Yeah.
And they basically said, it might be this little license plate thing on it, which had been on there since the time we picked it up.
Yeah, what are they called?
They took it off. But basically, this one's not on us. It's an Airstream problem.
That's exactly right. Because Mercedes delivers the chassis. It's the same chassis that they deliver to companies all over the world, and then Airstream will, do all of the but all of the, add-on stuff. They basically add on everything to the chassis afterwards. One of the things that they do is they add this bumper type thing that allows you to step up and kind of, I guess if you want to work in the engine bay or something like that, it's for whatever reason. That they believe that was causing an issue with the sensor. Despite it coming from the factory that way. So regardless, they were able to clear all the sensors. They had to remove that bumper thing, and then it started working, which is great.
Someone has woken up from his nap.
You want to say hi, Dash? You want to say hi, everybody?
He's eating raisins.
Yeah? He's still asleep.
Still waking up a little bit. So after the Mercedes dealership, we took her back to Airstream of Tampa to see what's going on with the Timberline system and see what they can do about this sensor issue.
There's also one other thing, that the fog lights were falling out. One thing the dealership told us is that when they spray the bumpers at Airstream Corporate, when they're building the units out, they might have sprayed too much paint and the fog light covers were sort of falling out, so the brackets weren't able to engage. These are minor things. A windshield washer broke. I just want to make sure we cover everything because we're trying to be as comprehensive as possible. So the windshield wiper was fixed as well.
Which brings us to month number 9. And she was in the shop. And that brings us to month number 10. And she was still in the shop. At that point, we also had the Tokyo Marathon that we went and ran. So we let the Tampa team know that there wasn't any massive rush. They knew when we were getting back, but that we were hoping to have it ready by then.
Right.
So let's see, that brings it to month number 11, which is April. We went and picked it up when she was finally ready and took her to South Carolina.
Right.
For a trip to visit more of my family out there. And really just kind of due to the fact that there were so many issues with the van in general and an oversight with the dealership. They didn't realize that we were picking it up and they forgot to put the back seat on the chassis.
Like the rear bench seat wasn't bolted down on one side, so
we didn't have the tools with us, so we had to stop by Airstream, South Carolina.
Yep. To have the bench put back together and the rear panels and everything put back together as well.
Yeah. So they got that done quickly, which was nice. And then we continued on our rest of our trip. We did stay at a campground, but overall, we didn't plug her in hardly at all. The electrical system seemed to be finally working.
Yeah, I feel pretty confident that the electrical system is in a good spot right now. I'm doing a better job of managing my own expectations. The days of me thinking you can boondock with this thing for a week, long gone. I don't even think it's possible with the E1 package. I could be 100% wrong. If you have one and you're able to do it,
let us know.
I don't think the solar panels that come with it are worth anything. I think there's just like 300 or 400 watts of solar. The battery bank the lithium pack is massive. I don't think it really makes a dent in that. So I think you maybe you can get a couple days out of it with basic use, and I think that's pretty much it. You're gonna have to drive it again.
But we still had an issue with that leveler. So after the trip, we brought it back to Tampa and put it back in the shop for that. Which leads us to month number 12.
Yep.
And the reason why we're not shooting this video in the van is that it's still in the shop.
Yeah. Yep. So
there you have it. 12 months of ownership of the Airstream Interstate GT 23 foot.
24 foot.
Oh, thank you.
2023.
2023, 24 foot. Do we regret it? It's been a big learning experience.
At this point, we have a year under our belt and maybe 8,000 to 10,000 miles on the van. A majority, if not all of that mileage, has been driving from Florida to California by way of Wyoming and then driving back while also doing a tour day dealerships as well. So the reality is that's the experience we have to base this feedback on. We would have liked to say that we could have had more experiences that we could share with you. We definitely had another heartbreaking experience we had to cancel. We had the balloon fiesta. That was a tough pill to swallow because that, as you may or may not know, that is really hard to get some campground access there. And we had it lined up and had to cancel it because, of course, it was in a shop at that point as well. So we've missed a lot of amazing camping experiences.
And then I think my favorite question that everybody asks is it a lemon? So we bought it in the state of Florida. The reality is Florida lemon laws are 30 days in the shop. So yes, it's a lemon. What we did not know at the time, well, really at all, is that a lemon law case can take up to 3 years. So it's not really quite a simple fix.
No matter what. Yeah, so there's no simple fix.
But at the end of the day, we definitely have a whole lot of memories. Dash, do you love the van? Yeah.
He does. He actually loves rolling up and down in it, and honestly, you know, there are a lot of cons. You can park it so much easier in a towable.
No, pros. There are a lot of pros.
Oh, I'm sorry, pros. They're so fixated on the cons.
Say that.
I know. It's like cons. No, pro. You can just pull into a grocery store and park in the back of the parking lot, and it's really easy to take into small towns, whereas, you know, you really can't with your towable, so you have more access.
I mean, even packing the Airstream Classic, like for shorter trips, like it really is wonderful as far as that piece of it goes. So when it works, it's great.
It's fantastic. Yeah.
Well, and like we've said, we have a lot of friends who have purchased years that are pre-2020. I know nobody's curious about what happened then, that have had really, really positive experiences with the Airstream Interstate. Obviously, ours has been one that has been pretty regrettable, but at the end of the day, it's been an experience that's allowed us to wander local all over, and
that's true. We've met a lot of really nice people in Ubers and at rental car places. Locals working on planes and no.
So there you have it, friends. If you haven't already this week, make sure you wander local. And also, if we forgot something or you have a specific question, feel free to leave it in the comments. We will be happy to answer as honestly as we can.
And we have some really fun content coming up, so make sure you stay tuned. We've got some fun content coming up.
But if you haven't already this week, make sure you wander local. Because as you know, can you say it's good for the soul yet?
Can you say it's good for the soul? No, are you getting shy in front of the camera? You're never camera shy.
This child talks 24/7.
You always talk. You don't want to say it's good for the soul? No. You want to wave? You're going to give them the foot instead? You're giving them the foot instead? Is that your new wave? Whoa! Hello, everybody!
Can you say it's good for the soul?